Hi there and welcome to ATP, and today I'm going to be talking about the wonderful GoPro Hero 7. And I've got to say, I'm in love with it. It's reignited my love for GoPros. I also have, my last camera was the GoPro 5. Now I've owned pretty much, if you've looked at my other videos, I've owned pretty much every GoPro since the original, I think it was a 960 or the HD. I didn't buy the GoPro Hero 6 because I didn't think it was much of an upgrade from the Hero 5. There was nothing in there that kind of really wowed me and made me think, well, do you know what, I'm going to upgrade to that. It just wasn't worth it. The 5 was working really well at that point. So I kept using that until a couple of weeks ago when I was filming my daughter, and as I fell in the water, I opened the bottom door, salt water got in, camera fried and dead. So that was that.
So it's the end of September, we're in the water.
Now, I could have bought another 5, but the 7 was out, and from what I saw from GoPro's wonderful marketing was that the stabilization looked brilliant. Now, obviously, I understand that it's their marketing tactics, so took it with a pinch of salt, wanted to try it myself, and I thought, well, why not just buy the Hero 7? So I got hold of it. First thing I did was checked out the stabilization, and it blew me away. It's as good as they say. Now, obviously, it's not going to be the same as something like the Mmmm or the great big handheld stabilizers for your DSLRs and things, but it works amazingly well. I've tested it in all sorts of places. I've tested it on fairground rides. I've tested it while walking along, just basically walking and holding the camera. And one area where it really shines is when you're doing your, what are they called? Your time lapses, motion time lapses, or your hyper lapses. I didn't think it would work that well, but there's various settings in the camera that you can do. You can set different multiplications, so you can set it to 2 times slow-mo, 5, 10, 15, 30. Now, if you set this to 15 or 30 times slow motion, then it works incredibly well. There's some superb algorithms in here that actually take the last shot that you took and try and stabilize it based on that last photo. So the more photos you're taking, the more stable it's going to be. And it works so well. I've actually held it in a car while driving along sort of at dusk, and even though the car was very dirty, which you can probably see, but I was holding it, and as the car was jumping about, obviously I was moving and the camera was moving, so you can see the car moving, but if you look at the actual outside, it's not moving at all. It's stable as anything, so it just works really well. So if you were to hold this outside of a window while driving along, I can almost guarantee it's going to be really stable. Also, without anything else, just walking along and, like I say, doing a motion time lapse, it just works incredibly smooth. The footage came out amazingly well, much better than I thought it would. So I can see where the hype comes from with this. But like I said, it's not going to be the most amazing stabilizer you've ever seen, but for a camera this size at this price bracket, it's brilliant, and it knocks spots off the previous GoPros. It really works well. So take my word for it that the hype is kind of real, and the stabilization works really well. Now, the other things I like about this is it's got a big 7 on the side, so everyone knows you've got the latest GoPro. I actually prefer the slightly darker gunmetal grey. It works really well. Now, when you buy the camera, you still get the cage, this case thing for it as well, so you don't have to buy that. And you'll also be pleased to hear that the camera is exactly the same size as the 5 and 6. So if you've bought all your peripherals for those cameras, then just bear in mind that they will all still fit this, whether it's the cage there or the whatever they call it, the cage, let's just call it the cage. So it will fit that. It will also fit the other cases, the ones where you can go deeper underwater. It'll fit all the peripherals. You can see there, exactly the same size. So it's exactly the same camera. Okay, just all the internal bits have been improved. So if you've got various lenses and filters and things, they'll all fit the same. Now, other areas where you've got improvement on this are the audio. Now, as you know, this doesn't come with an underwater case. It's waterproof as it is naked like that. So when you've got the microphones on here, they've had to have a kind of a film over them to stop water getting obviously into the camera. And it seems like they've improved that a bit more now. So the audio is much better.
Wait, oh, I know.
So this is the GoPro 7.
Yeah.
on the Vilter M stabilizer, 4K 60p with super smooth stabilization on the camera as well. So hopefully it's looking pretty steady.
But there are a couple of kind of caveats with that. When I was jumping about in the sea with my daughter with this, I had it set to kind of auto and have the audio kind of manipulated for me to make it better. And I got some weird echoey sounds and things like that. So you're better off just switching it all off and it will work really well. Obviously you'll get the wind noise, but that's not so bad. You could almost use it as just your main audio if you're doing vlogging and blogging. I think it would be good enough for that. But obviously you can still input another microphone into this. The only downside again is that I think it was only the GoPro Hero 2 that had a 3.5mm audio input jack, which was the most helpful thing I've ever had on a GoPro. And then they took it out for subsequent ones and they've not put it on this one. It just meant I could quickly plug in any of my sort of stereo mics that would fit 3.5mm and I would get really good audio. But now you have to buy an adapter and plug it in and that kind of stuff. So it's a bit of a pain, but it's my only kind of gripe with this. What you've also got on here is 4K at 60p, which is incredible. Beautiful, beautiful footage. Works really well, lovely and clear, crystal clear. But I would advise one thing, that you actually make use of the exposure value compensation. So when you're in super bright light, I'd knock it down maybe 0.5 of a stop, just to stop the highlights being blown in clouds and things like that and reflections. So just bear that in mind. It may tend to overexpose in really bright sort of sunlight. When you're facing away from the sun and things, it's beautiful, really good, but just pay attention to the manual controls within the camera like you would any other camera and you'll get the best results from it. You've also got on here 1080p at 240 frames a second, which is again really good, and it's really clear, great footage. I'm actually going to compare it to the Samsung Galaxy Note 9 and see if they see the kind of difference between the two. But yeah, it works really well. It's a nice one to have, and they've also increased some of the ratios where you've obviously got either the 16:9 ratio or got the 4:3 ratio, so you've got a taller picture. So if you're snowboarding or something like that, or skydiving, then obviously you want a squarer picture so you can get more in, and that's been improved. So some of those are much better now. So one thing I wasn't that much enamored with in the past was the voice command with the camera. So I don't really want to be standing somewhere telling the camera what to do and there's people around, it gets kind of embarrassing. But areas where it is good, if I've got the camera here, say in this office, and I want to be recording myself and I don't want to keep getting up and turning the camera on and off, or if I'm doing selfie stuff and you want to take photos or video clips or time lapses, then it's very good for that. So the camera's off at the moment. So if I just say GoPro turn on, it comes on. It's a bit of a lag, but it's still pretty good. And then obviously GoPro turn off, it goes straight off. So turn it on again, GoPro turn on, and it's on. Now, obviously you've got all the other commands, so I can say GoPro start video, GoPro start recording. Okay, so I've got to get the commands right. So it's now recording video, so GoPro stop video, GoPro stop recording, not video, it's recording. And then GoPro take a photo, takes a photo. GoPro shoot burst. That's pretty cool. So if you've got your camera set up somewhere, or you're on a tripod or your handheld, or it's somewhere and some really cool action happens, then that's really cool. So GoPro shoot burst. If you're skiing or something, it's just brilliant. GoPro start time lapse. And it'll start a time lapse. GoPro stop time lapse. And it'll stop. So you've got the commands, they work really well. So like I say, in general public, I wouldn't necessarily use them. But when you're maybe skiing, if you're on the end of a pole, so I've done shots when I'm skiing, when I'm holding the pole out in front of us and filming us all going up on a chairlift, and you don't want to obviously start recording, and it's not easy to do. So if the camera's on a pole and you say, GoPro take photo, it's great. So you've got the photo, you don't have to mess about. So I think it's really cool. When you're in certain situations, I think the voice command is actually really useful. So I really like that. Going to photo mode, again, like I said, if you're a bit more serious about your photography, I would always switch the ProTune on, because you can get the best photos out of this. I've never been a big fan of photography on the GoPros because the sensor's so small, you generally don't get very good quality photos. But to get the absolute best quality photos, first thing I would do, if you're on a skiing holiday or abroad, or you're on a beach, anywhere where there's nice light and good light, or if you've got a tripod to put the camera on, I would set or turn off the auto ISO, because to be honest with you, anything above 100 ISO, which is the standard, the image gets really mushy and just loses, it just doesn't look good at all, okay? So the best camera settings on here, I would have the field of view, whatever you want, but wide is obviously best. Turn super photo off unless you really understand it. If you're okay with processing raw photos, I would turn super photo off. All that does is gives you better dynamic range and that kind of thing. It does all the work for you. So if you're unsure about raw, use super photo, but otherwise I would stick to doing the raw photos. So turn raw on, turn ProTune on, have the shutter set to auto if you want, but you can actually set it yourself. If you're, depending on what you're doing, you can have faster frame rates. If you want to do some night stuff, you can turn it right down. EV compensation, I'd leave that at 0 or -0.5, like I said. White balance, stick to auto if you don't know what you're doing. But like I said, the ISO, have the minimum at 100 and the maximum at 100. So don't use any auto or higher ISOs. It's just mush. They don't look good at all. Sharpness, if you're shooting raw, then I would set it to low, because you can then do the sharpness in post-production and it looks lovely. But if you set it to high, if you're not going to shoot raw, then I would set one of the other settings, go to medium or high. High does tend to sharpen a bit too much, so it looks a bit fake. It doesn't look good. So maybe set it to medium. Quick capture's perfect. I would always leave that on. It means if the camera's off, you just hit the record button and it will start recording, and then you hit the stop recording and then it will stop recording and turn the camera back off. It just means if you've got it in your pocket and you're not really shooting anything, you can quickly whip it out, start recording, and it will start recording. So I would always have that on. One point with this that is really good, a good upgrade, is so if you like filming in a portrait orientation, normally you put the camera, you can do it with Vive, have it on portrait mode, but then you've got to go into processing software to actually make it viable for things like Instagram. Whereas when you video with the GoPro 7 in portrait mode, the video is output in portrait mode straight away. So you can upload it straight to Instagram. Okay, really good feature. Now, another fantastic feature with the GoPro 7, as opposed to all of the others, when you're using the GoPro app, you can now do live streaming. Let's say I'm a wedding photographer, a wedding videographer, and in the past I've thought about using this before with other means, but 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you'd have to have a live broadcast unit, and it would be incredibly expensive and very bulky and everything. So let's just say now you've got 3 GoPro Hero Blacks, you're at a wedding doing your normal videoing, but you've got these set up with a good powerful Wi-Fi. You can actually have the wedding itself in a church, have 3 GoPros running, and you could be streaming it live to all of their friends and family around the world that can't be there. That is a massive thing to offer a couple as a bonus for hiring you as a videographer for their wedding. And then you can do the same at the reception. You can just have it running all the time. You've got battery power for these, and all the time your phone is working, you've got a good Wi-Fi signal, you can do a live stream. Now again, like I said, you can actually plug in an external power source to these. So if you've got a 20,000 milliamp battery you can plug in, it's going to last all day. You can do live streaming for a couple of hours, no problem. Have all 3 cameras running with those battery packs. Have your phone plugged into an external battery pack so it doesn't run out as well. Get a good Wi-Fi signal, and you've got brilliant option for your wedding clients. Again, fantastic. What a way to show off what you're doing. If you're jumping out of a plane, if you're skiing or scuba diving or whatever, you can just stream it live. Just trying to think about underwater whether you could do it or not. Might be some limitations there, but you get the gist. So that's kind of it for now. I don't really want to go into too much details about all the little things and the little bits. If you've owned GoPros in the past, if you've got the 6 or the 5, or in fact if you've got any GoPros and you like the idea of doing live streaming, you like the super stabilization of this and the other features that have been upgraded, this is definitely worth buying. It's a really good little camera. Obviously you're not going to get the quality of a Red camera or a GH5S or a Fuji or something like that. It's a small camera, look at it, it's a matchbox size, so you're not going to get exceptional 4K quality on a big screen. But what you are going to get is a lot of fun out of this. Whatever sports you do, whatever activities, if you're out and about with your mates, you can have this in your pocket and just grab it anytime and do some awesome stuff. Talking of which, I would 100%, if you like going in the water and in the sea, definitely get one of these. It's called the bobber, And it's brilliant because if you do happen to drop your GoPro, this will just bob about in the sea. When you've only got the GoPro on, it's good enough buoyancy to actually keep it on top of the sea, and it also gives you a really cool handle. The other thing I'd recommend are these amazing loom cubes. I've done a video on YouTube, so if you go to my channel at just look for Nick Stubbs YouTube, you will see my review of these. Now I use these on the drone as well, absolutely brilliant, but they are the brightest lights I've seen for something this small. So I'll just show you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They're incredibly bright, super, super bright. They're brilliant. So if you're underwater, if you're an underwater videographer, get yourself a good amber filter to bring out the colours underwater. Chuck a couple of these on, they're fully waterproof. And you've got a perfect setup, really good. So check out my video on those, they're really good addition to a GoPro. But at the end of the day, I would massively recommend one of these if you like doing fun stuff, extreme sports, vlogging, Instagram stuff. It's just a really good all-round camera, and I'm really pleased they brought this out. It's just brilliant.